Had 2020 been like any other year, the Bellevue Farmers Market would be getting into the full swing of the season. Crispy lettuce, plump tomatoes, and mouth-watering cheeses. The committee had been gearing up for an eventful summer, where friends and neighbors could connect, share an afternoon, and enjoy some of the best communities southwestern PA has to offer. Our local cooks could plan great feasts, while the less kitchen-savvy could share a smile, taking in the hard work of true artisans. It's ironic then with COVID, as serious as it is, this neighborhood is still doing all of those things, just with a bit of quarantine spin. This is the story of the Bellevue Farmers Market Feeding Neighbors program. We're going to see how, with some great volunteers and some tremendous community support, the market has transitioned into a service organization. And we'll meet some of the folks who, when looking for the helpers, decided to lend a hand themselves. Let's start by dropping in on a Wednesday in late spring.
Elise put out the correct number of cheese slices that we need for the sandwiches for today. So once we get all the sandwiches made with the cheese, we're going to bag everything, we're going to get a count from there, and then we're going to see if we need to make any more sandwiches. Okay? Awesome. Yes, sir.
Brian Davidson is the market manager. Brian lives in Avalon, and he's a teacher at PA Cyber Charter School. He may be one of the people best qualified to maintain order while the rest of us adjust. In most years, he'd be setting up the market as the afternoon begins. With this project, he's still one of the first to arrive to greet everyone.
We usually get there between 1 and 1:30, and we get set up. Things as basic as putting pencils out, or getting the sign-in sheets ready, or putting plastic down on the tables. And then when the volunteers arrive, that's when we get them organized. So we tell them what they're going to be doing for the day. Typically, that's taking whatever the kitchen has cooked, putting that into individual portions, if that's bags or in little containers or whatever.
Brian remembers when the project began.
On March 13th, one of our committee members, Albert Chookshaw, wanted to do something to help the folks in the community who were going to be impacted by the virus. We knew from working with the farmers market that a lot of folks live paycheck to paycheck, and so when the stay-at-home orders were put into place, a lot of folks in our community were losing their jobs, including some of our committee members, and we knew that the financial impact of this virus was going to be extreme.
This has been one of the most eye-opening challenges or situations I've ever experienced.
Albert has worked for Fortune 500 companies, startups, and everything in between. As a consultant and entrepreneur, his background has been getting projects off the ground. He hadn't previously been involved in food service or food insecurity issues. But as Albert has learned, food insecurity is a serious issue in this community.
Simply the idea that you could go hungry and that there are some systemic reasons for that. So in this case particularly, some of those are financial, some of those are access, some of those are you don't have a source of food nearby. What made this situation a little unique is the social separation and the need for people who could be vulnerable to stay away from places where they would have gone grocery shopping every day or once a week. The area that we are in, there are very few options for food if you needed it. It's just there were not very many opportunities to get food. And even fewer because some of the food banks were reducing or even shutting down in the crisis. So that was number one. I think the other piece was that we didn't means test. So a lot of programs like this have extensive intake forms, income requirements. There are all these different things that go into those decisions. And we didn't have any of that because we recognized that there are a lot of folks in our community who maybe have never sought support before, who maybe have never needed a helping hand through a crisis. So we decided this was going to be no questions asked.
Albert is married to Dr. Mallory Chookshaw. Mallory is an internal medicine physician at St. Clair Hospital. She's the co-chair of the farmers market. She and Albert live directly across the street from where the farmers market usually takes place. As a leader of the Feeding Neighbors program, she knows that customers of the market and recipients of these meals come from the North Borough neighborhoods of Bellevue and Avalon and beyond.
These people are all within about a 5-mile radius directly north of the city and for most of where we are. So We are just over the city lines in Bellevue, but we serve the Bellevue, Avalon, Brighton Heights, Millvale, all the way up to Ross Township, all the way down to McKees Rocks area. I think the most challenging thing for me has been the scale and how quickly it has taken off, because we went from a plan of making 75 meals in a couple of our own home kitchens to producing 700 meals 3 times a week. And the scale is really daunting when you think about that. One of the things that has just been incredible to me is the generosity of people who work in the food and beverage and restaurant industry in this area. So Grant Saylor, who owns Lincoln Avenue Brewery, has been over backwards for us. He has been doing everything he can kind of behind the scenes to help us get free food when available and then to process that food. John King of Revival just showed up the first or second weekend that we were doing this and said, I will make one of your meals every Saturday for as long as this goes. And oh, by the way, here's the food vendor that I work with. They're willing to give you $500 a week in free food. We are so grateful for them.
Andrea Contes, the other co-chair of the market, is the finance administrator for Bellevue Borough. The local governments have been challenged during this crisis. The charity of local groups and individuals, Andrea believes, has made the difference in this effort.
Watching everybody in the community come together has been one of the most rewarding parts of this entire process. To see people who are so willing to give of their time, their energy, their money, their talents, just to feed these people is amazing. Little amounts of money that people are able to give us and apologizing for not giving more.
Bonafide Bellevue is a local community development corporation that helps to revitalize Bellevue as a community. We're a project under them, and that partnership is crucial for what we're able to do. They have the 501c3 organization, all the legal designation stuff. They have the ability to manage and navigate some of the funding stuff that we simply don't have. And they can pay for things like insurance and some of the licenses that we need to be able to do what we do every year.
The team applied for and was awarded $25,000 in grants through the Heinz Endowments, and an additional $25,000 from the Pittsburgh Foundation. This funding, coupled with private donations, helped buy food and safety gear so the team could stretch the project from the initial weekend to over 2,000 meals a week for 18 weeks. One of the neighbors giving of their time has been Kate Cabeston. Kate is a resident of Bellevue who moved here last year with her husband and their young son from Idaho to live closer to their family on the East Coast. Kate is a certified athletic trainer who has worked in industrial ergonomics. Kate leads the loading of ingredients and materials and is one of the team members responsible for cooking each day.
If you have the opportunity to help somebody and you can, then you should. Knowing that 700 people get to go to bed with food in their bellies and I help do it, that's been huge.
The kitchen team plan and cook the meals for each day's deliveries.
The same crew that works in the kitchen primarily. So we have Gary, who's a pastoral associate, who's our diocesan liaison. Tim, chef. We have Kate, who is an art teacher, and Rachel, who is a surgery scheduler for AHN, plus myself and Mallory. That's our core kitchen group.
One of the kitchen volunteers, Chef Tim McLaughlin, brings his extensive restaurant background to this project.
I went to culinary school at the Art Institute 15 years ago. I did my internship at the Duquesne Club. I was the executive sous chef with Kevin Sousa at the Bigelow Grill for a few years. And most recently, I work for Aramark, and I'm the executive sous chef at PNC Park.
The food that the team is creating is obviously at scale, but it's still high quality. The kitchen staff really put their heart and souls into making top-notch food. So when you open the takeout container and sit down to eat, it's a filling and tasty meal.
Wednesdays, our meal will be a sandwich of some sort. Saturdays, John King from Revival has been good enough to, for the most part, take over Saturday's meal service, which is amazing. And so we here focus mostly on Sundays. At the beginning of the week, we'll get a list of things that are available to us. And we'll kind of go through that. And I guess it takes a little bit of creativity, we'll take these pieces and put them together, and I think that we've come up with some pretty good stuff.
As Tim said, the team receives a lot of food donations. Food service providers Cisco and Gordon's Food Service provide the lion's share. There's a local Meals on Wheels group run out of a church in Emsworth a few miles down the road, and the couple who's been doing it for 30 years often get donations that are more than what they were able to give out, so they pass the excess along. Meal recipients also often get a tasty treat. Local bakeries such as Good Loving Cookies, The Cakery, and Bake True North generously donate desserts. The generosity of the community doesn't end there. The Feeding Neighbors program has been welcomed to use the commercial-grade kitchens of 2 local churches.
Greenstone and Assumption opened their doors to us. Neither of them have charged us anything to use their space or their electricity or water or anything. We definitely would not have been able to do this program if not for the help of both the Greenstone United Methodist Church and the Assumption Catholic Church in Bellevue. Both of them have been absolutely critical to the success of the Feeding Neighbors program. I'm in touch with Emily Marburger, who's the mayor of Bellevue. She got in touch with Dave Ewing, who's the pastor at the Greenstone United Methodist Church in Avalon. They had a kitchen that was not being used, and we were able to use that kitchen for the first couple of weekends. So Greenstone Church it's a great space. They have a lot of burners, they have a lot of equipment there, they have a lot of ovens. So we were able to do the first couple weekends there, doing 300 or 350 meals there. We were also able to get in touch with the North Boroughs Community Outreach, which is a large food pantry that is housed at the Greenstone Church, and we were able to coordinate with them and use some of their food before it was going to spoil. After a couple of weeks, we got in touch with Gary Frisch, who works with local Catholic churches in the area, and he got us over at Assumption Church, which their kitchen that they do for their fish fries is much bigger. Fish tacos, that came from fish that was bought by Assumption Church for their fish fries that they couldn't do. Dining area space that we use for the meal packaging, that is much bigger. The kitchen is serpentine in nature, so we were able to have a lot more volunteers every day there and still allow for that social distancing. That has been fantastically helpful in being able to provide the meals that we need to.
Elise Kleiss is a coordinator of volunteers for this project and oversees the safety precautions, such as social distancing. Elise is a PhD candidate in chemistry at the University of Syracuse and currently lives in Bethel Park.
I love the Pittsburgh area and Allegheny County, and any opportunity to help any of my neighbors that are struggling wherever they're at. They don't have to be in Bethel Park, they don't have to be in the city. Just to know that we're lending a hand to those that are struggling at this point is more than enough motivation to give my time. It's been really nice to still be able to interact with people, but at a safe distance, and provide a place that those who might not necessarily have as much stability at home or support, a place to come and still feel useful, still feel like they're not trapped in their house during a time where it feels so crushing to be at home. It's nice to get out and know that you're doing something to help other people, and I think that providing that opportunity, whether it's for myself or for our volunteers, is absolutely so important right now. I think it slips our minds that we're working during a time of a pandemic, and everybody has this kind of family feel whenever we come in here and are working to put together these meals. It's hard to still put in place these social distancing guidelines, because I know people are coming here for not only to provide for those in need in our community, but also to help break the monotony of being stuck at home. We really have a large space in here. We're able to adequately separate people. I think sometimes we've had upwards of 15 volunteers, but we've still been able to put into place those social distancing guidelines.
Elise has been impressed with the commitment of volunteers. She mentioned Carolyn LaQuatra and Vince Dash, who have been helping out during meal prep hours and after.
And Carolyn has taken home many of our paper bags that we're currently packaging all of these meals into, and she's written these beautiful sayings that just help bring a human factor to this that I think was lost. Not only are we providing food now, but we're letting these people know we care about you, we're here, we see you. Even though you might not be able to leave your house, we want you to know that we're here for you. And Carolyn and Vince have just been amazing pillars of support here at the church and outside for our recipients.
It's nice to be able to help out during the virus epidemic, be able to do something as opposed to doing nothing.
Carolyn and Vince moved to Bellevue in 2010. Before their retirements, Carolyn led the Bellevue Business Center, and Vince worked for Duquesne Light. Before the virus, they both volunteered at Allegheny General Hospital. Carolyn explains the origin of the messages on the bags.
It was about 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday morning, and I had a dream right before I woke up that the volunteers were writing personal inspirational notes on the bags. And I thought about it when I woke up, and I thought, this has got to be really good. It means it's like connecting with the people. It's like we don't see you, we don't know who you are, but we think about you, and we hope you're doing well. So Vince and I do it, and it takes us, so far we've done about 3,000 bags.
The hardest part about doing this is the social distancing. There's so many wonderful people here that I would like to shake their hand, give them a hug, and I can't do that. And I really miss not being able to do that. I can't see their smiles, and they can't see mine.
They really have a great attitude. And they're not the only ones. The community volunteers have really lifted the spirits of this group.
We have a list of over 200 volunteers, and they come from all over. We come predominantly in the North Boroughs area, but we've had folks sign up from as far away as like Etna, some folks from Wexford and Seven Fields. A lot of folks haven't been directly affected themselves, but they were quarantining, they were trying to follow the rules, and they just sat in their house and were just getting anxious the whole time because they couldn't do anything to help. On site, we'll have between 10 and 15 volunteers between in the kitchen and out in bagging, and then we have probably between, I would say, 12 to 16 drivers for every day that we're delivering meals.
We've put in some pretty significant safety measures for our volunteers. When they come in, we take their temperature with a forehead scan thermometer. They write down a waiver that says that they haven't had any symptoms, and we've talked them through that and the reasons for that, and they know what symptoms to avoid. And we have had to send people home for risk factors or symptoms in the past. And then they wear gloves and a mask the entire time that they're here. We also do a lot to promote social distancing in the way that we package the food. Our drivers do not hand the food to people, they drop them off on the porches. That reduces transmission. They're given a new pair of gloves for every delivery stop that they go to, which reduces transmission. We actually load the car for them with gloves and masks on.
Arranging the delivery of meals to more than 700 individuals each day takes a lot of work. Brian explains the steps it took to accomplish this task regularly.
From the very beginning, when we did this, when we were over at Greenstone Church, we started with folks coming directly to the church to pick up their meal. Talked about having folks line up outside, but the Wednesday, when we were going to do this next week, we knew it was going to rain, and we didn't want to have folks standing outside in the rain. So the first big logistical challenge we need to figure out is delivery, and how are we going to get these meals out to folks. I can't express how grateful we are for OnFleet. Well, they offer this app to us for free because we're doing this program. And through the OnFleet, it takes all of the addresses of everybody getting a meal, it creates routes for all of the drivers, we can see each driver in real time where they are, we can see who's getting the meal, when they get the meal. I don't know if we could have done this project without that service. The very first time we tried this, I printed out address labels, and I gave them to a volunteer, and I said, here, try your best to figure out where these meals go.
Several delivery volunteers drive similar routes each day, which helps them get to know their recipients. Routes are between 12 and 15 stops and can take 45 to 90 minutes. One of those drivers is Clay Strickland. Clay is the younger brother of Mallory Chuckshaw. Clay would be at the end of his freshman year at Point Park University and continuing his internship at Red Cayman Studios, a recording studio in Pittsburgh.
Well, it is fun. It's rewarding. It's nice to, just do something nice for people who need it. But it is hard work. There's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people are very nice. Most of them are appreciative that they're getting a free meal that they didn't pay for, and it helps them feed them. And a lot of times they're families. And most people are really appreciative about it, but there are people who are embarrassed about it because, most of these people wouldn't be getting a meal if it wasn't during the pandemic. So some people feel a little bit mixed feelings about it, I think, but overall everybody's very appreciative and very nice. Keeps your mind busy. You know, however many 18 hours a week or 20 hours a week I volunteer gives me a little bit of a drive or purpose to do something. It's a good cause.
I never do the driving. I'm always on the preparation end of the spectrum, so I don't ever drop off food, but people have been commenting on social media and telling the drivers, and we get cards and letters. Sometimes we get phone calls from people just to say thank you. And it's very clear when you take all of that in aggregate and you look at how many people are reaching out to say thank you, how sincere the need is in this area.
2 months ago, there were a lot of unanswered questions, and I think what has been most impressive with this group in this situation, and this is not to pat ourselves on the back, it's to show that it's doable in any community, is that you can take that kind of crisis and turn it into something that is positive for the community.
The community really has come together during this effort. Volunteers have met neighbors and become new friends. Drivers have traveled to hundreds of homes, bringing meals and a human face to those in our area who have struggled. Foundations, churches, businesses, individuals, and the farmers market have formed a nexus to create great food and serve our neighbors during this crisis. While the spring of 2020 has looked different than anyone expected, the volunteers of the Bellevue Farmers Market have been proud to help bring healthy and tasty food to our neighbors in need.
You see something and you think about how it can take shape, then all you really need to do is put the steps in place to make that happen.
Awesome, amazing. It makes you really appreciate things in a different view, and it makes you realize that there are a lot of others out there that need help.
It's been really good for me to have something, like to have a purpose, and that makes me feel good when I come here and I feel like we accomplished a lot.
Kind of develop this general relationship with the people that we're delivering meals to. So that's been fantastic. I mean, a lot of little kids are out when the weather's nice, and we're always waving, saying hello.
It's been really fascinating to get to know people I have never met before and spend like 10 hours a week with like a significant amount of time with people who I had never known before. But it's been really nice to build those relationships and to be able to do something positive.
More in the beginning, like when people were so isolated and everything. And for me, it just made me feel like I could do something.
Yeah, I've made some really cool personal connections and just gotten to know some people. They're quick interactions, but people are super kind. I've been lucky to have some really awesome people.
It's been great. I think it's remarkable what you guys have done, and everybody's a pleasure to work with, and I'm looking forward to volunteering at the farmers market.
I've really have been so thankful to be part of this. My kids have been the ones taking it up to the doors, and they've, smiled to them and thanked them a lot.
Cute, because people look at them and they're like, "Oh, you made this just for me." Bon appetit. Enjoy your meal.